When I started making seasonal videos, I said that there were 3.5 types of anime each season. The popular one, the anticipated one, the shitpost, and the surprise hitter. Weirdly, I think I found a show this season that covers all of those bases for me. Yeah, JoJo's. That's it. Anything I could say in regard to it critically just won't have any impact. From what I understand, the first 4 parts of JoJo's are just like this season of JoJo's in terms of quality, so anything I say will have been said thousands of times before the words even leave my mouth. So I propose I just describe my viewing experience instead. I expected only 2 things of JoJo's: action and memes. On the action front, it's very refreshing to see a shonen that pays attention to its own power system and finding new ways to be creative with it, instead of throwing it out a window whenever the protagonist needs to win. As for memes, the sound design might as well have been done by an Instagram comedian considering the amount of thuds they have. Well, that's like the only time comparison to an Instagram comedian has ever been a good thing. But for some reason, that wasn't enough shitpostery for me. And then the gang torture dance happened. Gang torture dance. I want you to realise those words were all used in the same phrase. But I also appreciate that you don't actually have to know much about JoJo's to follow this one, and it gives me motivation to watch the previous episodes in due time. But JoJo's Part 5 wasn't the only sequel I watched this season. Fooly Alternative was the one I wasn't sure about going into, and it wasn't based on how it marketed itself, because I honestly kind of forgot it existed based on the marketing alone. What threw this into doubt was the lower quality of Fooly Progressive, as it tried to be what Fooly couldn't really be. But thankfully, Progressive has its own identity, crafted for its characters instead of its story, which makes it feel right at home beside the original Fooly. It also learns about how to manage its cast, as all characters don't feel like they're being over or underused, with the exception of Steve Blum's character. We need more of Steve Blum in general. Haruko also feels more accurate to her persona in the original Fooly, and being more of the embodiment of the id that we kind of all loved, instead of being thirsty for Atmos like she wasn't Progressive. As petty as this is going to sound, I fucking miss this colour palette. It's not really a big thing, but the orange tint everything has looks much nicer than the saturation of Progressive. And Studio Bones had a much larger involvement on this one, as each fight becomes a game of which cut did Studio Bones work on. Spoilers, it was this one. Alternative fulfilled all I wanted of it, and maybe a bit more, making it the ideal sequel to Fooly we all wanted, with some emotional moments thrown in there for good measure. We don't really see much overflowing in this season of Fooly, which is good considering I think we saw a bit too much of it in Progressive. For those who can't remember, Hidomi, from Progressive, began overflowing once she got hit by a car. On that note, Zombieland Saga was my go-to comedy this season, and the first idol anime I've watched. Not the last at this rate. The first 2 episodes were on everyone's lips when they first aired, as they started off with dark humour and Mamoru Miyano showing us where he vented after playing a sensible version of Kyoma. And then it topped itself again with a second episode, in a rap battle which would be cringy by all accounts. But it's done by a group of cute anime girls, so we'll ignore that. I'll be honest and I'll say the show starts off better than it ends, which is unfortunately something MAPPA has struggled with since its inception. Although episode 8 is pretty great, not gonna lie, it takes some effort to make a character dying in a way not too dissimilar from Kazuma and Konosuba to actually feel sad. The CG? Yeah, the less said the better. As for the characters, it uses 5.5 of its 8 principles to good effect, although I would argue that Junko and Ai are kind of predictable, and Sakura comes off as a bit of a pain in the ass in the second half. But what the show does with its setting is actually really interesting, because they use a lot of real-life Saga establishments, which is where the series gets its title, as Saga is a prefecture in Japan. The title is basically like if I made a series called Vampire Country Cornwall. So as a tourism ad for the prefecture, I can't say I'm not impressed. Also, Saki is best girl, despite my dispositions against thugs who hang outside chicken establishments. Once again, I guess it helps they're cute anime girls. So next up, we have Bloom Into You, the definition of industrial-grade Yuri. I thought Bloom Into You was basically just going to be 13 separate games of when do they make out, after the first episode where it's revealed that Yu is realising she may be a lesbian, and Toko is realising the fact that she may be Roger Moore's James Bond. Well, that's what I expected, but the characters actually grew on me, as its relatively small cast led to me forming an attachment to all of them. Our 2 leads especially. Yu and Toko's reversal of the typical senpai first year dynamic by having Toko be the vulnerable one, with Yu being the emotional support who she goes back to, being very refreshing. I also commend the series for steering away from cliches that the plot could have easily gone down, such as a love triangle which gets resolved without any confession bullshit or entire episodes primarily devoted to that. There's also a Kosei-style mourning character arc, but it's toned down to a point where it doesn't become omnipresent. In short, the show merely has these tropes as a backdrop for its characters. The question of who loves who is ditched in favour of what is love? Which means the love triangle I mentioned earlier isn't as annoying, as instead of girl loves girl, other girl loves aforementioned girl, fight to the fucking death, here we have everyone's affections obvious from their introduction, so instead it becomes a process of learning to understand each other. Although, on that note, it is more entertaining to see the relationship between Toko and Yu than the relationship between Toko and Sayaka. It's probably the only time I'm going to advocate for seeing less of a character played by Ai Kayano. Although the scenes where we see all three of them together are some of the best in the show, as we see this lesbian threesome individually resist the urge to start, well, a lesbian threesome. Troika has definitely proved itself with Steve Bloom into Yu. They've come a long way since Aldnoah's era.
Started out small to a real bond, cause we're brothers first, cause we're been through a lot, but it ain't over, we gon' keep it going.
You'll always be with me.
I think it's time I talk about my favourite anime in this season, but if you excuse me, I just need to do something first. Oh yeah, my favourite show was Bunny Girl Senpai. I'm gonna have to apologise. I mentioned Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai during my Pet Girl of Sakuraso video. I'm gonna praise the shit out of it here, do it again at my 2018 Anime Awards, and then I'm probably gonna do an episode of Best Girl Wars about it. So, I apologise to you guys, because I'm going to have driven the series into the ground by March at the latest. But why give it all this praise? Well, I think it's the perfect hybrid of two shows I already love, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya and the Monogatari franchise, with the tone of the former and the structure of the latter. The main two characters were also made under this philosophy, with Sakuta having the perverted nature of Araragi mixed with the snark of Kyon, and Mai being a mix of Haruhi's cuteness and bunny girl costume with Senjo Gahara's sarcasm and tsundere nature. This is great because Senjo Gahara and Haruhi are already top tier waifus, and the characters are being written by someone who knows how to write a good waifu, as the author of Bunny Girl Senpai also wrote the best, Pet Girl of Sakuraso. But Kamoshido's dialogue game has only stepped up since then, and you get scenes where a character gets punched in the face trying to defend a first year, says that he's stepped in shit, and then proclaims he's still a virgin, and somehow comes out of the situation cooler than they were before. All of the characters are good in their own right. Even this show's panda onesie wearing Emoto has more applications than... I've been waiting to do this ever since I got this microphone.
Incest.
Well, not that much, but I'll cover that when I make the Best Girl Wars episode on it. In short, this is a show which will make you laugh and make you feel, sometimes at the same time, with a plot that keeps it fresh no matter what character is being focused on. And that's it for Autumn 2018. I'll be properly coming back in 2 weeks, my 2018 Anime Awards, so look forward to it. Until then, Happy New Year! And with a new year, new outro.